Welcome to the Superpowers for Good show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe. Today's guest, social entrepreneur Justin Wheeler, is the CEO of Fundraise, a digital fundraising platform that nonprofits have used to raise almost $1 billion. He'll also share insights about his superpower, Optimism. If you'd like to have more success and more impact, stick around. Justin, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a thrill to have you on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, you're doing just some of my favorite stuff. I'm a huge fan of crowdfunding. I'm a huge fan of nonprofits. I'm a huge fan of social entrepreneurship. You're doing all of that. So it is really an honor to have you on the show. Thank you for coming. Tell us about Fundraise.
Absolutely. So I'll take one step back. Prior to Fundraise, I spent 12 years in the nonprofit sector, started 2 nonprofit organizations, raised about $100 million through digital fundraising, and was just never happy with the software, the technology that was out there in the market. And so about 3/4 the way into my career in the nonprofit sector, started building Fundraise at night with my 2 business partners. And we often would say we were fundraising during the day and building fundraising technology at night. And we just saw in the market just a huge fragmentation of just the technology landscape. Organizations using 3 or 4 different pieces of software. So we had a vision early on to create an all-in-one solution that would help organizations, not just steward their donors, manage their donors, but also to provide just a world-class experience on the front end. For all things, related to fundraising. I once said to my business partners that it shouldn't be easier to buy toilet paper on Amazon than it is to give to your favorite charity. And so we really obsess over that user experience. Especially, I think the pandemic underscored just this acceleration in the digital economy. And now more than ever, it's important for organizations to really optimize their giving experience online. And so Fundraise is a software solution built to give a fundraiser a full stack solution around all things related to fundraising and donor management and analytics and so forth.
Well, this is, you kind of hit the nail on the head describing this as fragmented and difficult, and nonprofits are using different pieces. And so I'm excited to learn more about what your platform does, but part of what you have built is by dropping the D in fundraising. Clearly, you've tried to make this fun in some way. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so spending 12 years in the nonprofit space, I often saw that the fundraising teams were the teams that were the most stressed, that often didn't get the recognition, and everyone wanted to be on the program teams, the teams that were, making the most change in the world.
Right.
But I saw fundraising really as the conduit to programs. Like, you can't have programs without world-class fundraising. And, I personally always would get so excited when I had the opportunity to sit across from a donor and to invite them into an opportunity to raise funds and to invest in our organization. So when we were starting the organization off, the company Funraise, we said, it's going to be part of our mission is going to be to put a smile on all fundraisers' faces. That's why we've got a smiley face in our logo. In fact, like within the first year, we actually created a musical around Funraise. And so, it's definitely a part of our DNA as a company. It's one of our goals is to ensure that fundraisers around the world are remembered as individuals of absolute importance, and that they have fun, doing, I think, one of the most important jobs in the nonprofit space today.
Yeah. Well, there's some great slogans out there like no money, no mission, right? That describe the importance of this, right? You can't do any good in the world without some money to fund it.
Exactly.
Even if you're organizing volunteers, somebody's got to buy the bagels, right? Someone's got to buy the coffee.
Right.
So yeah, you can't really do any good without the money. Tell us a little bit. Many members of this audience are involved in nonprofits. Some want to start nonprofits. Tell us a little bit about the features. Get a little bit granular. Maybe wander off into the weeds for a minute and tell us about Fundraise as a tool.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start on the back end. So Fundraise, is a full CRM, which allows you to manage your constituents, right? So build profiles, enhance the data with wealth information, demographic information, log interactions and activities and tasks and, gifts and so forth. Just basically a full-fledged CRM that allows you to have a full picture of an individual donor or a more advanced reporting and analytics that we call Fundraise intelligence allows you to create real-time dashboards that brings all the data together so that you can make a good decision when you're thinking about event fundraising or any sort of channel-based fundraising. The ability just to have a complete picture of who your supporters are, how they've been involved, how they've been interacted with, and so forth. And then how all that data gets dumped into the CRM is through all of our tools on the front end that are around the acquisition side of donors. And so we've got, giving forms. We call them smart giving forms because they're incredibly efficient, but we're also able to enhance a donor's information as they input information, like wealth information as an example. And then it's just loaded with all sorts of other features, company matching, recurring giving, pledges, things like that. Then we also have for like campaign-based fundraising or capital campaigns, we've got a beautiful, peer-to-peer tool that allows you to build your own fundraising websites, invite your supporters to create their own fundraising pages to raise funds. This is great for Giving Tuesday, end-of-year fundraising, as I mentioned, capital campaigns. We also have events, a whole event suite for ticketing, registration. Allows you to track attendance night of your events and lots of fundraising technology for live fundraising. And then also a few different mobile apps that allow you to, as a fundraiser as you're on the road meeting with donors, gives you ability to check in on when the last time this donor's been interacted with, what their last gift might have been. Just really nice, clean user interface. And on the donor facing side, a donor has an app where they can also manage their contributions, pull tax receipts, update their recurring gifts, update their fundraising page, all of that. And this is something we've been focusing a lot more on lately. Most organizations don't know this, but over 58% of their web traffic is actually coming from mobile. Donors prefer a mobile experience, not just a responsive experience, where the screen fits to your screen size, but an actual real application where they're going to actually do the things that we do in other applications, banking as an example. And so, we have a full suite of tools, both for organizations and for donors, to really enhance the giving and administrative side of stewarding donors.
It is such a great reminder that web traffic has shifted to mobile, and we don't often think about that, especially if we have any gray hair, right? Those of us with gray hair get excited because we know how to use a computer. So it's a good reminder that that's all shifting to mobile, and that takes a whole new generation of strategic thinking. So it's great to hear that you're making that leap. Tell us about some use cases. Maybe you could give us a case study, an example, a story about someone successfully using Fundraise to really make a difference in the world.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'll reference so many different examples here, but I'll talk about an organization, an early customer that's still with Fundraise today. They're called December. They're a small team of I think 4 or 5 individuals, but they raise about $3 million every December through peer-to-peer fundraising. Large enterprise organizations wish they could raise $3 million through peer-to-peer fundraising, and so this organization has really created a movement. They've got thousands and thousands of fundraisers, tens of thousands of donors. And one of the things early on that we really prioritized was the integration between our suite of tools and social media tools. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitch. And so we give an individual fundraiser the ability to connect their page that they create on Funraise with all these other, channels. We have a strong belief that omni-channel fundraising is the most effective way to raise funds. Instead of bringing donors to your one page, go to where all of your friends and supporters are already interacting. And so December, an organization that really utilized and still utilize our peer-to-peer results, when they came on to Fundraise, their first year on Fundraise, they grew by over 200%. Because of just the ease of use that we provided to their fundraisers, but also the connection between all these other platforms that were important to capture attention on. And so that's a small, sort of example. Think like, generally speaking, like on a macro level, if you look at our customer base at large, which is about 2,000 nonprofits on the platform, we're seeing, if we compare sort of our peer-to-peer fundraising and our online sort of giving metrics to like industry benchmark standards, we're seeing on the fundraising side, our customers raising 2x more than the national average. And so I think a lot of that is definitely around just the ease of use that we make it. We make it very easy to contribute, and so it's definitely an exciting time to be in the space as we're continuing to think about new ways and new opportunities to help organizations raise funds. I mean, crypto is another great example. We launched crypto giving 2.5 years ago on our platform. And we've seen millions of dollars donated through crypto gifts. And this is an area that, again, organizations should be looking at and thinking through as they expand their fundraising capabilities.
Yeah, it's really difficult for a lot of nonprofits to figure out what cryptocurrency is, forget how to start accepting it, and yet they're what is it, $1 trillion now of market capitalization in cyber currency. So it's, our cryptocurrency, we got to get that integrated into nonprofit systems. So it's cool that you did that 2.5 years ago. That was very forward thinking of you. So
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I think, it's nonprofits are generally 5 to 10 years behind the curve, and the reason, at least in my opinion, why that is they're not encouraged to take risks. They're not encouraged to fail, and I think this is what holds a lot of organizations back from really succeeding. And I think that if we can give organizations the room to experiment and to test and even to fail, that we would see an acceleration towards organizations achieving their mission faster. And so, although being a technology provider in this space is just a small role to play in the grand scheme of things, my hope is that we can help organizations make this leap into just a more dynamic way of raising funds in the 21st century.
Yeah, it is just critical. It's a whole mosaic, and you're building that whole mosaic. So kudos and congratulations. And so far, you've helped nonprofits raise about what, $750 million?
We're actually coming up to $1 billion here. But at the end of the year, it'll be $1 billion raised. We're at about 800 million raised so far, and Q4 is generally our biggest season. So
sure.
We should see the billion threshold crossed pretty soon.
Oh, congratulations! That's a huge milestone to reach. Well, Justin, what is your superpower?
What is my superpower? Oh, man, so I think, so if I was a fundraiser, I'd answer this differently than if I was the founder of a company. So I would just say, and I'll kind of explain this a little bit more, but I'm an incredibly optimistic person, which allows me to make big bets and take big risks without the fear of what the consequences might be if we don't hit that target and so forth. And generally, someone in my position, I've got 4 kids, would maybe be a little bit more conservative in that regards. But I've always just been someone that believes if you can think it, you can make it happen. You can find a way to get it done. So the ability to be tenacious in the midst of challenges is something that I pride myself on. And I think about, when you're starting a business, when you're looking at an industry like the nonprofit space, where it can be incredibly hard to sell into for lots of different reasons. Thinking of the competition in our space, I think having an optimistic outlook allows us to do bigger things and take bigger bets. That if we weren't to take, we would just we would have only seen incremental growth. And I believe that taking big swings has a direct, obviously, correlation to exponential growth. And so that's what I'm really passionate about is not just helping Fundraise grow, but we grow because our goals are aligned with our customers. If our customers are growing, we're growing. And so that's kind of a lot in one sort of response there, but that's how I would kind of answer that question, if you will.
As you think about that optimism that has been so powerful for you, how did you develop that? We all stumble, we all trip, we all struggle. And yet what we see is optimists tend to be able to get up faster, keep going, and be more successful in the long run. And so it's something that I think, even if you're pretty optimistic, you want to develop it stronger, right? You want to become more optimistic. Let that become a Justin Wheeler type superpower. So how did you develop your optimism?
It goes back to an early age. I think, it was something that my parents really helped cultivate. I always wanted to try new things, and I was somewhat different, I think, than my siblings in this way. And my parents really encouraged me to explore and to think creative and to think big. And so I think it really goes back to just the way I was raised and the way that my parents really kind of supported me in what I wanted to do early on. And so I think that's really kind of where it was nurtured. And as I've gotten older, I think, I've also thought about, and I've been using this phrase, more because I think there's different seasons where optimism, I think needs to be accelerated or declined, if you will. And so I've been using this phrase cautiously optimistic, where when I approach a certain decision or reality, something that could have a more significant consequence if it goes sideways. Thinking about it from a more cautiously or conservatively optimistic perspective has been helpful. It's helped hedge the optimism a bit. But I think that is, and it's just part of it is just my also personality. It's hard for me. I don't look at failure as something as like a bad thing, right? I look at it as something that's going to make me better for the next decision that has to be made or the next thing that I have to do. And so I embrace failure as much as I embrace success. And I think that helps keep me level-headed and helps me to really learn from the decisions that come and mistakes that come my way.
Yeah, well, that's really helpful. And I really appreciate you sharing that. I wonder if you could put on a professorial garb virtually here and think about how you would teach someone to be more optimistic. Let's assume that they're starting with some measure of optimism, but a desire to become more optimistic so that it really becomes a superpower. How would you teach them to do that?
So I would say I would embrace, there's this concept I learned a while ago called zero gravity thinking. And a lot of times when you're going into maybe a new field or exploring, whether it's education or starting a new business, whatever it might be, this concept of zero gravity thinking, it gives you, which basically, you don't have a lot of domain expertise. You're not the expert in the room on the particular thing that you're trying to get into. And that actually gives you an advantage because you don't have these parameters in or goalposts in terms of how you can think about solving a problem, or how you can think about solving a problem. And so I would say, obviously, like, you don't want to be like overly naive, but you also want to use, this concept to your advantage, so that you can think bigger, you can think outside the box, you can think of different ways to solve the problem. So if someone was, to get a little more practical, if someone was asking, if someone was like, I need to solve a problem, right? The way I would help on the optimism side is, well, think outside of the box. Think of a way that no one else would approach solving this problem. Think about from a unique perspective. And that's, I think it's what I've learned over the years is optimism is actually more of a muscle than it is a quality, right? It's as you embrace optimism, and as you curate it around certain events or decisions, it becomes easier and easier to think bigger and to think positively about outcomes. And so I think it's taking baby steps, but it's also training your mind to really think about things differently and outside of the box. And maybe you come back and you make the traditional decision, and that's fine, but at least you go through the exercise of thinking through all possible creative outcomes.
Yeah. That's really, I think, an important observation. It seems to me too, and maybe you have an opinion about this because it's been such a big factor in your life and success, but it seems to me that optimism makes people happier, regardless of other outcomes. That it just tends to, that optimistic outlook tends to keep people focused on the good. Is that what you experience?
Yeah, I mean, everyone has like their different situations and backgrounds and so forth. But from my experience, optimism has definitely created a lot of happiness, even in the midst of some challenging, hard times. I always believe that it's going to get better, and sometimes it has to get worse before it gets better. Although that may sound cliche, but I just truly believe that the moments of challenge and hardship are going to be overcome some way or the other. Right? There will be an outcome that you're going to get on board with, and you're going to either learn from it, or it's, and so I think that it's definitely created happiness. And it's, it's, and especially as an entrepreneur, I know there's lots of entrepreneurs that are more pragmatic or maybe less optimistic. But for me, I was just talking actually about this with my business partner. The emotional swings of entrepreneurship, it's intense, right? It's like 1 minute, it literally can be, we're building a unicorn company. The next minute could be like, what is happening with this company, right? Literally within the span of an hour, you can have these really wide ranging emotions. And so I've just found optimism just keeps me balanced and grounded, despite how good or how bad something might be at any given time. I believe the future is going to be better. And so it just keeps me, at least it helps me get through each day and each challenge one day at a time.
Yeah. Well, Justin, you've been very generous with your time and profoundly generous with your insights. I appreciate that. Before you go, I wonder if you would take a minute and just tell people how they can learn more about Fundraise and how they can connect with you, perhaps on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to our website, funraise.org. Again, there's no D, it's funraise.org. I'm on LinkedIn. You can search Justin Wheeler. I usually post 3 or 4 times a week, practical, tactical tips around fundraising. And also, we have a podcast called Nonstop Nonprofit, where we bring on nonprofit leaders to talk everything from leadership to management to fundraising. Today, we released a podcast on the Great Resignation, how to retain your employees better. So it's a wide kind of ranging podcast, but it definitely, if you're a nonprofit leader looking to grow your organization and learn from pros that have been doing it for 20 plus years, that's another piece of content you can check out. And then I always, anytime I'm speaking or on a podcast, I always give listeners my cell phone number too, in case they want to shoot me a text to get in touch, and that's 562-242-8160.
Fantastic. Well, Justin, thank you. Thank you for your generosity and for sharing your cell number and everything else. I congratulate you on the success you're having at Fundraise, especially approaching now $1 billion raised for nonprofits. Kudos to you. And we wish you every success in continuing to help nonprofits, build the money to put behind their missions.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun chatting with you.
All righty. Let's do some good.
Let's do it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Superpowers for Good show. Twice each week, we host changemakers who share their impact, insights, and superpowers. Don't miss another episode. Subscribe today at superpowersforgood.com. That's superpowers good.com. Be super empowered. Get your copy of the book, Superpowers for Good, as an ebook, audiobook, paperback, or hardcover edition via your favorite online retailer. Interested in having me speak to your company, organization, or association? Visit devinthorpe.com. Then let's talk. Now, keep using your superpowers for good. Together, we can reverse climate change, improve global health, and eradicate poverty.